Well, hi Nick.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Are you buried in snow?
No, actually, it's all starting to melt. It was in it didn't hit it didn't hit 30 today, but it was super sunny, so all the snow was melting.
Yeah, I don't think you didn't get hit like they did with our friends in Ohio, did you?
No, not at all.
Yeah, I think there's a company in Tennessee that got hit by ice, and their facility was out of commission for almost a week.
Mm.
So yeah, it's pretty crazy. So it's been a while. So I thought, you know what, good way to start up having podcasts for a while, chatting with you. I thought, you know what, I need to get Nick would be a good way to start out the year with RPG ramblings.
Fantastic. I love to ramble.
And you know what we love more than anything else? Rabid dogs.
Indeed. It's a labor of love, and it is on Kickstarter again.
Yeah, so we're not talking about actual animals that are rabid, but the Kickstarter put out by Nick is called Rabid Dogs, which is a rather unusual name.
Yeah, it actually comes from a corrosion of conformity song. At the time that I was working on this zine, I was struggling to come up with a zine name, and the drummer of Corrosion of Conformity, Reed Mullen, passed away. And since they were like a pivotal, like game-changing band for me, I decided that I would honor them by naming these zine Rabid Dogs, and then I gave it like a whole punk theme.
So, so how does one take, like, let's say a very, very high concept of, you know, something from music, and you want to, you know, for one, it's not like you're wanting to provide a product where somebody needs to understand the music and love the music to be able to understand how to play, but you also want to make sure that for those who do love, that there's Easter eggs in there, right?
Yes, tons of Easter eggs.
So how does one go
Um,
about that?
well, you just kind of go for it. I chose Rabid Dogs because it's one, the first issue had the canine class in it. I had the canine class, I had um uh the actual song Rabid Dogs. The only lyrics are rabid dogs eating flesh. And it actually I never confirmed this, but it was said that it was their vegetarian song.
Oh,
And so
so it's the people eating flesh are rabid dogs.
yes, correct. And so that obviously resonated with me, and so I was like, yeah, this is the theme. And then I ended up, uh, you know, looking at ways to tie each of the articles in Rabid Dogs to a song. Um, so there was there's a song by The Accused, Halo of Flies, and I did an NPC that has flies that are attracted to him because in order to cover up his corrupt evilness, he like wears like honey and lavender and other strong scents to cover up his corruption, which draws flies to him. And that's where I pulled in Halo of Flies from The Accused, and then Holier, which is another Corrosion of Conformity song, which is about being holier than thou, and it has a religious subtext, and so I did a paladin type class called the Icon Bearer, and so I titled that Holier. And every one of the articles, I then explained how these connections pulled in some way. And so yeah, I just made it happen. I just mashed it together in a way that made sense to me, and it resonated with people.
So you've been in contact with the any of the band members regarding this?
No, no, because I did this with all like classic bands that influenced me, and I'm not It's funny, like a lot of people I came up with, they were like idol worship is BS, but they would still like is when Facebook became a thing, they would befriend, you know, Keith Morris from Circle Jerks and Black Flag, or they would befriend XYZ, Jello Biafra from the Dead
Yeah.
Kennedys, whatever. And I'm just not that kind of guy. The only time I ever contacted any of my I guess influences was specifically Jello Biafra because my band Poison Planet did a record where we covered two Dead Kennedy songs, and I just reached out to him to be like, "Hey, I had to pay rights to record these songs, and I know you're not going to get any of that money because of the lawsuit. So I wanted to know if you wanted any copies." And he's like, "Yeah, I'd like 10 copies." So I sent him two.
You're not making that much money off these records, so you just
and
hand
and
them
it was
out.
only a 200 7-inch press. So since
Yeah,
there were
right.
only going to be 200 of these records, I
Yeah, 10%.
yeah. So
But I would say that it's not really, I mean, so to me, I think we can't escape the fact that art begets art.
mhm,
Begets art, begets art, begets art, begets art. In fact, I
absolutely.
think to me, I find it very emotional when not necessarily at this moment do I feel emotional about this, but those themes where people become inspired and do things because of what other people have done and how that continues to progress through time, I think it's a noble thing. And I personally believe that I think just even send them a copies of that, just say, hey, FYI, I don't need to hear back from you, but I just want to let you know I did a thing. And
Yep.
thank you so much for your music and not be asking for autographs or, take them out to dinner or, you know, whatever I think would be
Yep.
sufficient.
Yeah,
Because
and it was
I would think, and I could be wrong, I would think that after all these years, somebody doing it, especially after a fellow band member has died, it would probably be touching for them to know that at least it resonated for somebody to create something.
yeah, no, I don't disagree. It's funny. I've always been weird about stuff like that. I famously only have technically I have two autographs that I one that I asked for. This is a funny story, and it ties into punk rock and why I'm weird about that kind of stuff. So I went to go see a band called DRI, Dirty Rotten Imbeciles, in 1989. They were my favorite band at the time, and I was obsessed. And so I go up to the merch booth, and I bought two shirts, a painter's cap, mesh trucker hat, but before they were called trucker hats, and I bought his book Notes from the Nest. And so I'm just on a merch buying frenzy, and the guy in front of me asks for the person behind the merch booth's autograph, and he's talking to him, and I catch that it's Kurt, the singer of DRI. And I was new, like I had come from a metal background where I went to see Iron Maiden and things like that, and Bruce Dickinson's not
Right.
standing at the merch booth. And so here I'm seeing one of my favorite bands, and the singer is selling the merch, and my mind was just like, whoa. And so I end up asking for this guy's autograph. And so he signs my painter's cap, and I still own it. Uh, and I end up going to my lunch table the next day, and the slightly older, like one grade ahead of me, skinhead that sat at my table, was like, "Yeah, what'd you think of the show?" And I was like, "Yeah, it was blah blah blah. I loved it, blah blah blah." And Kurt signed my painter's cap, and he was like, "Autographs, they're blah blah blah." Yeah, I don't know if I can swear on your podcast, but series of expletives gave me a reaming that I will never forget because I got an autograph, and that was just not punk. And so it was an interesting dynamic because of the fact that it was such a shock to my system. But then like it I connected with, wait, like all these punk bands, they're all on the same level. It's just people like me making music and traveling around, and we're all the same.
Yes.
And so it just totally changed my perspective on things. And the only reason why I have another autograph, it is another one from Kurt Brecht. And I did not ask for it. In the mid 90s, all of my bandmates knew that DRI was the reason why I wanted to be in a band. And uh, DRI hadn't played in New York State in forever, and they were playing in Syracuse. And all of my bandmates and all of my friends connected with my bandmates were all going. And I went to go hang out with a girl instead of going to see DRI. And so Jeremy, the guitar player of my band, he ends up going and getting a autograph for me. And it says, Nick, you're a poser, Kurt.
Now that really almost made it worthwhile, probably. I was going to say, well, I guess the lesson learned is that you probably have, I'm assuming, knowing you, you've broken up with the girl a long time ago. Uh, and so you could have gone to this one concert and you chose, so I guess there's a choice
We, we,
between
we
being with
were
the girl
together
or
for
going to a concert, go to the concert.
we were together for 9 years, and that
Oh,
was
that's
like
not
one of our
bad.
first dates. So it worked out.
Yeah, I guess so. I would say like 6 months later, she dumped you for, a bass player in a boy band or something, and
No,
you've been
no,
like, no.
no. And but I love telling that story because it is it's pretty funny.
It is. So the whole I think we don't want to I guess I won't say the lead, but this the Rabid Dogs is for Dungeon Crawl Classics, right?
It is, yeah. And so each of the Rabid Dogs issues, they are each one is a collection of classes. So the first one had three classes, the second one had four classes, the new one has four classes for Dungeon Crawl Classics because I've basically ex over time I've created now 14 classes. So across Rabid Dogs, all of the non-spell casting classes have all gone into Rabid Dogs. And excuse me. Essentially, then I fill it out with, rules that I use at my table. So all sorts, like the second one had piecemeal armor rules as well as encumbrance rules and a extensive equipment chart that expanded on the Dungeon Crawl Classics chart and also converted everything to a copper standard because everybody is so poor and miserable in standard. And then the new one has a bunch of stuff having to do with experience points because I do experience points a little differently than standard Dungeon Crawl Classics. So
Well, it's nice. I mean, it's nice because there's a number of people who have played your game at conventions, um, and I think do you do any broadcasting of games?
I don't. In fact, I don't even like running online.
Yeah.
I did it a lot during the pandemic, and then once I started having gaming in my house and going to conventions again, I was just like, yeah, I would rather just do this.
Well, yeah, I think for you being in a physical environment is definitely I could see where that would be something you'd want to do.
I do a lot of wild gesticulations.
Yes, yeah, you don't get to impose that pulpit like
Yeah.
you do in real life. So yeah, but so I think the idea is I think it's what's kind of neat is that they can have been in conventions, play your stuff, but then you also provide the various rules that are optional. So if
Hmm.
they want to play it your way, they can, or pick and choose. And I think obviously that's the been pretty much the OSR. I know we could argue, which I won't, one way or the other about DCC being OSR, but I think there's always to me it's that old the where you just you adjust rules at your table to how best fits you in your style.
The beauty of OSR systems is the fact that it's like everything is pieces that you can swap out and swap in. And so if I want to change the experience points rules, I can change the points rules without fundamentally changing the game. It's just rewarding different aspects of play than perhaps other people
Right. All
may.
you're really doing is changing the acceleration or deaccelerating the progression or
Yeah,
rewarding people. I mean, it could be you're rewarding certain types of behavior.
correct. And that is what experience points are for,
Yeah.
in my opinion, is for rewarding specific behaviors. So yeah.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like going back with with old school essentials, going back to BX, where in some of the older systems, there's a lot more XP for uh the value of money that gets hauled out of the dungeon.
Yep.
And so that that then reinforces the type of game that the system's expecting.
Yep.
But then if you want to emphasize killing creatures, you can adjust the XP that way, or if you just want to do milestone, you can do it that way. But depending on what you do will definitely affect how, because I think players will often figure out what's the most efficient way to do things, and then they'll they'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and then that's like so Dungeon Crawl Classics. I like the core experience point system in Dungeon Crawl Classics because it specifically rewards putting yourself at risk. Because the higher the risk of the encounter, the more experience points you get. But over the pandemic, I ended up playing a lot of story games, and it wasn't something that I intended to do. It just happened. There were friends of mine that wanted
Yeah.
to run Forged in the Dark systems or Powered by the Apocalypse systems, and so I got exposed to the idea of Stars and Wishes, and uh, the Stars and Wishes I pulled out of that the idea of rewarding people based upon going around the table and asking every person, what was your favorite thing that somebody else did? And I gave 2 experience points for each one of those nominations. And it changed the way people approached play. And my whole slogan is live fully and die gloriously. And when you reward people for actually doing stuff to entertain others, they end up living fully and dying gloriously. So I am specifically rewarding that behavior.
Well, and I
So,
think too, you're also doing a couple other things because I find sometimes there are different reward structures where you get points for this or points for that, points for this, points for that, and then you as a GM, you got to figure out, okay, was this really challenging? Was it hard? Was it simple? Did they really role play their character appropriately? Where you're like, you know what, forget that. I will source that activity to the table,
yeah,
and because people are doing it for others, there's very little chance that it's going to break anything.
yeah. Yeah,
And
the, the,
so,
the, the only thing that I ended up having to add to that system is then I go around the table and ask what was the most useful thing each nominate a person other than yourself. What was the most useful thing that somebody did? And that also is worth 2 experience points per nomination because there are some people that just play smart or conservatively or whatever, and that drive the story with smart play. And so that was the other thing that I because otherwise it ends up being like a popularity contest. And so it's not uncommon for the most absurd thing that happened to everybody pile the experience points on that one person's actions. And so it was a way to de-emphasize that slightly and spread it around a little more.
well, the thing is, I find like with work, there's been people I've worked for or around or with, but there's like one guy I particularly worked for was a very strong personality.
Hmm.
And I think I even said to him, because he was upset why other people weren't as driven, as motivated as he was.
Hmm.
And I said, Greg, it's great that you're that way. The company needs people like you, but the company doesn't need everybody to be like you
Yep.
because you guys would all be trying to take either out and trying to outdo and I mean it would be chaos. But a few of you sprinkled around is perfect, but not everybody. So I think the thing is you do want a little craziness, you do want a little sanity, you do want some people taking some risks. You want a little bit of everything, right? Because
Yeah.
that's otherwise it's just like it just becomes, I guess, could become very lopsided. It could be they were too boring or just too radical, where everything just falls apart all the time,
Yep.
and everything, or if everything's just about yucks, that gets old too. You need a little bit of
Yes.
everything.
So my last session of my home campaign, uh, uh, there is a thing in my rule set that's specific to Stennard that if you eat meat, dairy, or eggs, everything is corrupted. There's this pervasive corruption that's going through, and so there is a risk of getting sick. And so my players, because they were starving, they chose to eat something that was not uh, agreeable. And so they had to make fortitude saves, and a bunch of people failed their saves. And I basically said, yeah, for the next 3 days, you've got the runs. And uh, unfortunately, my players, a number of them, really wanted to role play that out. So the combat encounter hits, and people are running for the outhouses, and somebody's pooping off the bridge, and it's just like that was an unintended consequence.
Yeah, that's the way it can be with as a parent sometimes. You think you're
Yes.
being very smart, and all of a sudden you're like, I didn't
So
think
needless to say, with the serious tone of the stuff that I make, that was I wouldn't want every session to be like that.
Yeah, and I was the news I was trying to explain the standard setting, but I was afraid as I would describe it as being so austere that it would appear in my an attempt to describe it in a way that is, I think, accurate and appealing, would probably make it seem not fun, but it is actually a lot of fun. You know what I mean? It's like it's
That's the thing is that if you embrace the misery, you can find the humor in the misery.
yeah, it's like it, and I'm not watched it all, but to me, it's kind of more like I don't want to say Monty Python as far as the yucks, but as far as displaying the downside of living in a medieval era.
It, s- s- actually, the sequence in Monty Python's Holy Grail with the bring out your dead,
Yeah.
and then they starts ranting about politics. That's kind of not far off with how it ends up playing out at the table. And I have had some very intense like philosophical NPC banter back and forth with players. Um, and then it will then turn into, somebody, clubbing somebody that is, laying in the knacker cart type of
Yeah.
situation. So yeah, it is very serious, it is very dark. But there is a dark humor in it all that comes out at the table.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of play, modern play, like with 5e and such, it definitely tries to shine the light on, you know, being glorious and everything being super heroic and everything being kind of polished and clean and turned up to 11, and or this is like, what, you're dealing with some tough stuff. Your life is tough. And now the situation got really worse because now there's this hag doing something terrible to your already miserable life. What are you gonna
Yep.
do about it?
It again in that last session, what the chaos that had everybody running every which way. There was a boat with a bunch of corpses just drifting down the Stennard River through town, and there were giant spitting flies that were all flying around, and uh, one person was like, I need to to get into the boat to the corpses, and the corpses are infested with basically, I call them corpse crawlers. They're basically like big rot grubs from, classic D&D. And so guy goes diving into the boat in order to try and, steer it to shore, and immediately one of these rot grubs, these corpse crawlers, burrows through the guy's chest and he's dead. And so it is the the heroism that people try to bring is definitely co-opted by its lethality.
Yeah, if you're playing a different game, this probably would have been a good idea, but this is not the game you're playing.
No, it is
And
not.
don't say there wasn't any warning bells all over this thing. It's like
Correct.
a boat full of rotting corpses.
But yep, that is that is excuse me, that is my style of play,
Yep.
definitely.
Yep. And I would say anybody gets a chance to at a convention and get, lucky enough to get one of your games to go for it. So get the
I
full
I
experience.
I love a packed table. So please sign up for my games and pack my tables.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it does add to the whole. I mean, I think also because you have a number of fans who seek that out, so everybody's kind of in on this whole thing. So it's it's the experience will be very curated, not just by you, but even the other individuals playing as well. So, I mean, it kind of helps to, it's not like you get an old table full of a bunch of people who or want to play Daggerheart and they're just, oh, Daggerheart didn't work. Let's play this. It's like, no, that the table will help lead down the path of what a standard
Yep.
experience is.
Very, very much so. Very much so.
So, so this is the last one for the standard. So, are there any more themed
So this
zines?
is this is the last Rabid Dogs.
Right.
And so this is kind of ushering in a new era, I guess I could say of Stennard.
Huh?
Um, because the whole point of Rabid Dogs was, hey, here's a bunch of piecemeal stuff that I use at my table. Here you go. Use it at your table. Take what you want. Whereas, at this point, I have one more class coming. It's another spellcaster class, the Witch. Um, and after the Witch, I mean, I've got 14 classes, and so I've essentially built uh my own DCC spinoff that pulls in now. I just pulled in some bolt-on stuff from Dolmenwood. I use the torch timer from Shadow Dark. I use um, I switched over to the copper standard because of Knave 1E. And I was like, that's a great idea. And so I've pulled in all of these things from all these different places and kind of built my own, as I said, DCC spinoff. And I feel like now is the time, okay, with Rabid Dogs no longer kind of being needed, uh, I will start taking all of these elements and turning that into a Stennard player's guide, or even, like a Dolmenwood like, here is the system custom built to facilitate play in my setting. And that's kind of where I'm going with things.
So one thing I'll recommend, I'm, as you know, I've said I started reading a book called 1493.
Hmm.
And so the premise is the world was, you know, eons ago, we're just one large continent mass was a Pangea.
Hmm.
And then it separated out and it created a separation of people, of creatures, and they I guess through evolutionary process, they've all become very distinct in various regions.
Hmm.
Then when Columbus came, the result of that was basically putting the world back to, not say back together, but connecting the world again. And the amount of so diseases to like talking about silver to vegetables and the spread is like it's trans it we've terraformed the world,
Yep.
basically what we've done. But anyway, there's lots of like crazy things that made me think, because they're talking about plagues and plagues, but diseases
Hmm.
and blights wiping out, crops, and people trying to deal with that.
Yep.
But also one of the things they needed, it started the modern or ag complex, we call it ag industrial complex. I don't know what the term is, but massive farming on a
Yep.
large scale. It started that whole thing. And one of the things is they started planting all these potatoes. And what they needed for these potatoes was, because they're planting so many crops, it's sucking out all the juice out of the soil.
Yep.
They needed fertilizer. But I thought they got bat guano, but there's islands of bird guano
Hmm.
over 150 feet deep. They were
Hmm.
mining this guano. But I just kept thinking, Stennard, you're on a ship carrying this stuff, or there's this particular island of that where it gets harvested and gets moved. And they also talking about, like, with the mining of silver, and
Hmm.
in order to process the silver, they mixed it with mercury.
Yep.
And so they had mercury mines. So people were dying in the mercury mines, and then they would break up they'd break up the ore, and then they would, with people with horses or animals, people or animals would stomp on it, mix it together, and then they would put it in like a kiln and heat the thing up. The mercury vapor would boil out, and then people were only lasting like a week, and they're having severe neurological. But I'm just thinking, there's just like a lot of terrible things going on. I could think is there's a lot of stuff you wouldn't want to necessarily directly use, but boy, there's some good standard stuff there.
So I will say that I pull a lot of stuff from. So people will ask me what my appendix N is. What were my influences that I pull into the stuff that I make? And uh it's interesting because I pull in a lot of not fantasy uh, media. Things like The Walking Dead, 28 Days Later, all of the Mad Max films. Like, I am coming from this like post-apocalyptic community, communities are in collapse. And people are trying to rebuild against everything that's happening. The Road is another great one. Hell, which is a German film about ecological collapse, um, or environmental collapse. And so there's all these things. Those are the things that I'm pulling from, and then I am pulling from documentaries and what have you on like uh, sweatshop labor, animal rights, you name it, every miserable, awful thing that is going on in the world because of greed. That's kind of the stuff that I'm pulling from because that is really what is feeding into this corruption and collapse. And it is the push and pull of trying to to rise up out of this situation when everybody's like, I need I need to live, and so I'm taking what's mine. And that dynamic, it when you look at a lot of the things that have gone wrong throughout history, it's usually because somebody somewhere is like, I need this for me and screw everybody else. And so that's kind of the subtext of that's the really serious subtext that I don't spell out
Yes.
to people. But you heard it here first.
Yes. Yeah. It's funny because it also reminds me, there's a guy named Andy Edwards who does these. He's a musician, and he does these. They're kind of bombastic videos on YouTube about music.
Hmm.
And the last one was like the 10 greediest bastards in rock and roll.
Hmm.
And and it just goes to show like how people will go through great lengths. And he said they're not necessarily the worst, but he goes, but they're all good examples of people who are just greedy. And now people who have lots and lots of money will go out of their way to just eliminate their bandmates from getting any sort of royalties. And
Yep.
it's just like strange. People that are multimillionaires will making more off royalties will just try and take what little their bandmates are getting and figure out ways of even extracting that from them. It's like,
Yep. And that happens all over the place. It like uh the dead Kennedys who I referenced. I mentioned the fact that Jello Biafra would not be getting any royalties. Because he owned the record label that the Dead Kennedys, all the Dead Kennedys records were on, and so they were upset that they felt that like they should be getting more royalties, and they may be right. I don't know. I don't know the numbers. But so then they sued and won, and so now he gets nothing for anything that has the Dead Kennedy's name. So yeah, it's one of those things that stuff happens all the time, all the time, and it's a shame. But you know, also, I kind of like I pre-internet, I when I was running a record label, I had a band on my label that their record sold better than any record that I ever put out. And when I say better than any other record that I put out, I think I sold 4,000 copies total over the years. So it's not like a huge
yeah.
number. In punk rock numbers, it's good. But most of those were sold pre-internet, and a point was reached where we just lost contact. And so I continued to sell records, and I used it to put into other records. And somewhere along they ended up breaking big in punk terms, and being on a big label and doing a bunch of tours. And then they broke up. And so it's complicated. It's a complicated thing, but it is sad when a band is huge, like let's say the Smiths, and Morrissey and Marr both get 40% and 40% of the royalties, and Andy Rourke and Mike Joyce each get 10%. And so then they ended up suing, and that resulted in Morrissey leaving the UK for a while and living in the United States.
Yeah, it's just mind-boggling. But
Yeah.
that's human nature, right? So I mean, people put in positions and maybe a lot of people who are virtuous. It's nice to, I think I'm a virtuous person, but then again, maybe if I was put in that situation, I'd end up being a greedy bastard too. So maybe the only thing that's protect me from being a greedy bastard is just not having those opportunities to be one.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. It is. The world is a complicated place, and you don't know what you're going to do until you're in a circumstance. But I hope that in most of the dealings that I have had in my life, that I have been community minded and cared about the people that have helped me get to where I am. So
yeah, yeah, it's right. And I think most people are. I
mhm.
think it's just but I think also going with bands, I'm not sure how we're stuck on bands, but I think in general the probably the bands that succeed is generally because there's a front man who's just a crazy lunatic that's got a drive like nothing else. There's got to be one person that's just got to just be it's turned up to 11 and he cannot stop. And so that's probably when things are successful. That person is still that same person. You
Yeah.
can't just have a bunch of good musicians just being good musicians. That won't do it. You just need somebody that just is, you know,
There are very few bands. Like the first one that comes to mind and yes, I will bring this back to music almost every time. But AC/DC was the one band that I can think of off the top of my head that changed vocalists because Bon Scott died, and ended up having a record that broke big, even bigger than any of their previous records. And I am a Bon Scott stan. I will say that pre Brian Johnson was way better. But that being said, there are very few bands. I can only think of Sonic Youth as being a band that every one of the members contributed and wrote music. And I originally struggled to like Sonic Youth because when you listen to them in an LP format, every song sounds different. Because you got four different people writing songs. It's
Yeah.
like four different bands. Um, and so yeah, yeah, there's every band usually has one or two leaders, like the example of Morrissey and Marr and the Smiths. That's why they got the lion's share of the royalties in the original agreement because Morrissey wrote all the lyrics and Marr wrote all the guitar parts, and it was the combination of the two that made the Smiths what they were. So
Yeah, the Andy kind of explained that the usual breakdown is the lyrics are 50% and the band as a whole is the rest of the 50 is the other 50% with including the singer. So the singer could actually be getting, like 65% of the royalties. Like
yeah,
everybody else getting 15%.
I've never been in a band that had royalties, so I don't know. But um, in the dynamic in different bands, like the first band that I was in, I wrote three-quarters of the lyrics and none of the music. The second band I was in, I wrote none of the music, but I wrote all the lyrics. And then the third band I was in, I wrote all of the lyrics, and I wrote in the later records, I wrote like three-quarters of the music. So, you never know what the writing dynamic is in a band or what have you until you look at the liner notes and you're like, oh,
So you ever thought about doing getting a band together for a DCC convention?
no. Yeah, I have a laugh when I see stuff like that. Like one of the at Adepticon every year is the Goth Rockers, which are a orc themed band that like Guar, they dress up like orcs in orc costumes, and all of the songs are about orky things. That's not my scene.
Have you heard of Filk?
Yes, of course.
That is just bizarre. I find that. I'm glad it's out there, but it's like that is a strange genre.
The person that recorded most of my first band records, this guy Doug White, he was in a band called Ukla the Mock, named after the Thundar the Barbarian character. So yeah, no,
He
I
gets
I
extra
am I
street
am
cred for that
aware.
one. So not only are you a person who writes zines, but you're also a person who also runs you're a professional game master.
Yes. Yeah, that is a more recent development. And it is something that I love doing. I know it is contentious to some people with
It
me.
is strange, isn't it?
Um, yes and no. Like I understand this. So I actually have been meaning to record a video of my own on this topic. And we'll pull this back into music again, because in the punk rock scene, because this band Fugazi, fronted by this guy Ian Mackay, their whole shtick was that they were only going to ever play $5 shows, and then eventually cost of living went up and they upped it to 6. And so this embedded this mentality in punk rock that anything over $5 to go see a band play was a violation of punk rock principles, even though this was something that was that they did in 1989, and then by you uh, um, 1994, then they were charging $6.
Right.
And I remember being in a band and booking shows and promoting shows in Chicago in 2010, 2011, and I charged $7 for my shows, and people lost their minds. And so, and I was just like, the cost of living is not the same as it was in 1989. It just isn't. Um, and I want to be able to pay these bands so that they keep coming back to this city, yada yada. So there is pulling it back into this professional dungeon mastering situation. You have this dynamic where people have gotten used to having access to somebody that is willing to entertain them every week or every 2 weeks for 4 hours for free. And so there is this, some people are like, I do this every week out of the goodness of my heart. I love my players. It's a way to hang out with my friends, yada yada. And that's great. You can still do that. Nothing stops you from doing that. But at the same time, there is not enough game masters for all of the people that want to play role-playing games, and there are people like me that are willing to step in and
Well, I think it's also more than that. Like, so you have a number of things going on, right?
mhm.
You're publishing, you do convention work for Dungeon Crawl Classics. You're trying to have relationship with other people, so you do have some time, but your time is worth something.
It is. And I like the way I approach it is because I come from being in bands for years. I think of it as being like a band on tour. And so I need to be able, like, if like I just did a private engagement at somebody's house that his wife, paid for as his holiday present, as his Christmas present. And um it like I had to rent a car in order to be able to get out to the deep suburbs because I don't have a car. I live in the center of Milwaukee. I can get everywhere on bus or on my bike or by walking. So I don't need a car except for situations like this. And I work out of my house. I'm sitting I'm at work right now.
Yeah.
And so from that perspective, I don't need to own a car, and honestly, I can't afford one. Living on my zine empire.
Yes.
Um, the somebody being able to pay me enough money for my time and also to be able to rent the car to get out to that space and be able to run a game. Um, it is, as I said, it's like being in a band on tour. And I've done weekends where I'll hit, two or three game stores and coffee shops, so that it's like doing a weekend, like a band doing a weekend. And in order to make that possible, I have to get paid.
And the other thing is too, it's, people on the flip side, they want an experience. They know that they have want to do other things, which like what shocks me is like prices of tickets to like go see a band or go see like David Sedaris is going to be in town. Be great to see David Sedaris. $70 a ticket. My wife's not too excited probably about David Sedaris. Do I spend $150? And I'm like, a lot of people will. So you're saying, well, what? Me and my wife, we'd spend $150 for the two of us to go see David Sedaris. But you know what? Six of my buddies, we can have a good old time, spend an afternoon, and have Nick over and have an experience that we know that we'll love, and we don't have to find parking and deal with that and deal with this. It's just like so they're evaluating the price that you charge versus the experience they expect, and they figure it's a good value.
Yeah, yeah, and I hope that I deliver. And I feel like, the situation where how this guy had me come to his house, it was because he experienced me at a convention and had a fantastic time. And I was telling the anecdote of an experience that happened at my table at paid bachelor party gig that I did, and he was like, "Wait, you you'll if I pay you, you'll come and run games for me and my friends." And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about it after the thing." And he was so excited,
Yeah.
and I was excited because he was excited. Um, in
Right.
fact, I charged him my fee for 4 hours, and we were having such a good time that I ended up staying for an extra 2 hours. So it ended up being, a 6 hour session. So
Right. But the thing is that and everybody, but you still felt that so there's also a sense of compensation, right? So you were being compensated in a
yep,
sense from the enjoyment you were having.
yep,
So yeah, you end up spending a couple hours. You're like, that's okay because this is amazing.
yeah, and you know, for people out there that are listening, like, so I got paid the fee that I asked for. He hooked me up with a case of Liquid Death Tall Boys. His wife made me a vegan meal. It was soup, but still, she
Yeah.
took the time to make a vegan meal so that I would have food. And then on top, because everybody else was eating food, and then on top of that, everybody tipped me. And so it was just an absolutely fantastic experience. And so when I'm in that environment, then I am giving everything, because it's the same thing with when I played in bands. If I was playing for 4 people or if I was playing for 200 people, I want two things. I want to have the people that are at my show, and whether it's my game table or a punk rock show, I want them to feel energized and like, this person is giving their energy and feeding off of our energy, and it is this this synergistic experience. And at the same time, I want them wanting more so that they want to be at my table again or at my show again. And so I give it everything that I've got, and that generally brings out a certain energy at the table, and we feed off of each other, and it's fantastic.
So I have not yet paid for a professional GM,
Hmm.
but I do know that there are going to be games that I'm going to get to the point where I want to be somebody to run certain games.
Hmm.
Like, and I don't necessarily have that opportunity. You get lucky at convention. But sometimes, like, you know what, I would love to play XYZ game, and there's no
Hmm.
way to do it. And professional GM is a perfect way to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I I I've heard rumor that Start Playing is starting to add in a in-person component. I don't know if that, I haven't looked to see if that's actually been implemented in any way, but I wish that Start Playing or a similar site offered opportunities that was beyond, because that's the thing, is that you are able to go on to Start Playing and just look up by what game system
Yeah.
that you want to play, and you can play online with somebody that is going to run that game for you. And that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think and there are some GMs that they will also just even if they don't know the system, they will learn it just to run it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah,
So
because
anyway, that's
it broadens their scope and makes it, when you think of it as like a resume, they are adding something to their skill set by learning another system.
yep. Well, you going back to when you were saying you ran some more of the more story game style games like Powered by Apocalypse, but I think just in general, the more you're exposed to, even if you don't love the games, there's a lot of times things you can learn and pick up,
Hmm.
as a GM. So there's certain things like I know I've picked up that just the concept I use for almost any game. Some simple stuff that's just so there's a lot of value in just running, um, or even playing as a GM playing in different systems.
that was in the case of the Powered by the Apocalypse and Forged in the Dark experiences. Those were things where I was a player, and I got to experience those things. And I learned enough about them that I'm like, I had fun. Do I want to run these systems? No. But are there bits and pieces of things that I can take away from these that I can apply to what I do? Absolutely. Because every system has something about it that is unique or interesting or that you can learn from.
Yeah, or
Uh,
just makes it click in a way that's just very simple. It's maybe not anything elegant, but just like, wow, this little simple thing.
yeah.
It's like- well, even this is even not even something from a different system. One guy just said that he determines whether or not somebody can do something by rolling a die, and
Hmm.
it's either evens or odds. And he would say, wouldn't it be odd if this were to happen? Like say, is the door locked? Well, wouldn't it be odd if the door is locked? You just roll it. And it's
Hmm.
just like, I don't know what about it. He just, the way he said it just like resonated with me. And you could do that with any game. And it sounds like that's part of the mechanic, right? You don't sound
Yeah.
like you're even just flubbing it, even though you're just, you don't know, you're doing with it. But it's just, I just think there's just little neat things that people do, in game systems that are just, that are quite fun. So, yeah. So how did you start doing this professional GMing?
It started with me wanting to do in-store performances, as I put them. That's the term that when a band plays in a record store, and so I just kind of dub it in-store performances. And so I think it started with doing Smuggler's Coffee and doing Game at Games Plus. Games Plus was not a pay to get in, but I explained the situation to the guy that wanted me to come down, and he told everybody, "Hey, this guy, he's got his tithe box. Uh, Tip hard and buy his merchandise." And so I ended up rolling into Games Plus in Chicagoland, and uh, I ended up not only paying for the rental car, but ended up making what, $150 on top of that. And I was like, okay, this is something that is viable, that is worth my time, and that gets me in front of more people. And in fact, a number of the people that were at that game ended up becoming my patrons on Patreon. Have played at my table at conventions, and I've had I did a game back in September at a public library because I got asked to run a game at a public library in Chicago. So not here. And so I drove down to Chicago, and one of my patrons who has traveled to play with me, he's played with me at the Sussex Scuffle. He's played with me at Smuggler's Coffee. He's played with me now at this library at the Archer Heights branch of the Chicago Public Library, and that is it is a fantastic feeling to connect uh with fans, but also to feel like, hey, I am delivering something that people want to keep coming back. And it is that feedback loop that between, oh, I'm making a little extra money to get by on my once again my empire of zines,
Yes.
and at the same time uh being able to connect with others. It really it turned out to be a fantastic thing for me. And it, like, when my last band broke up in 2012, um I really missed performing for others. And this, between conventions and gigs, gives me that experience where I can get up in front of a group of people and shout in people's faces and just have a really good experience of, feeling that energy feedback loop. So,
Yeah, the so Smuggler's Coffee, is it the same company that sells at the
yeah,
various conventions? So did you ever did you ever have their coffee root beer?
no, I have not.
So they'd have this coffee root beer, and every year they would sell out.
Okay.
And there's a guy that made it, and uh he'd only make a certain amount, and they never really had enough to bring more than a certain amount. So at Gary Con I would get some, and at I think it was just at Gary Con, and then out there at Game Hole, but and in fact, Diego Negura, that's his last
Hmm.
name, right?
Yep.
He was I saw him and we walked around a bit, and this was a couple years ago, and it's kind of a funny story. I said, hey, you want some root beer? It's some great root beer. And he's like, is it okay to drink beer? I was like, no, it's not alcoholic. So it was kind of funny. My first realization that not everybody in the world drinks root beer, and it doesn't resonate exactly what it is. But
Yep.
anyway, so they every year they would make this stuff, and they'd say this guy he doesn't he just makes a certain amount. We're hoping next year to bring more, um, and I talked to him, and they're like, yeah, the guy just stopped making it. He made hot
Oh,
sauces, became very popular. And I guess people were buying, restaurants were buying it. And he was like an entrepreneur. And he's like, no, I'm tired of it. And then he's doing the root beer. And everybody was loving it. They wanted him to make more. And he's like, no, I'm tired of doing it. But he wouldn't sell the recipe
yeah.
for any of his sauces, any of his root beer. And so they may be trying to develop their own.
One of the things, and this is another side tangent that ties into RPGs, is that, and you see this a ton in the RPG sphere, is that um, I used to work at a food cooperative, and there were people that they were like, oh, I'm gonna make this thing, whether it was hot sauces or kombucha or whatever, and they would, ask, would you carry it in the store? And we focused on local products, and so we usually said yes. Uh, as long as it met certain guidelines, and we would say yes, and people would do it for 6 months or a year, and then they'd realize it's a lot of work. And uh, when you reach a certain point, there's a threshold where it is so much work that you can't do it by yourself. And you either have to outsource to a larger company to help manufacture your thing because you can't do it in your kitchen anymore, or a kitchen incubator, and so you're kind of SOL there, or you're just like, yeah, I've lost interest. I've lost my love for doing this. It's like the friend of mine who used to do my layout work. He also was a t-shirt printer, and he after printing t-shirts for 2 3 years, he was like, I kind of hate printing t-shirts. And how this ties into the RPG sphere is you will see a lot of people. They will get excited about Zine Quest or whatever, and they will do one zine, maybe two, and then they'll be like, wow, this is a lot of work, and I don't want to be a publisher. I just thought this was a fun thing to do. And then it's one or two and done.
yeah, I think this guy he was a very curious person. I don't think it had to do with the work, because people even were to say, we'll make it, we'll give you a cut of it. He wouldn't even want to do that. It just was just that it was his thing. He did it. It was intellectually stimulating. He would rise to success. I mean, going up and then just be like, nah.
It's a very ADHD autistic
Yeah,
thing. It is a
yes.
neurodivergent thing.
But yeah, and but you are right, because I think that the difference is the people that I run around with, that I'm in the circles with, are generally we're more the diehards that we're locked in, I think, for the long term. But you're right, for every one of us, there's probably 10 others that are just kind of, that aren't.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, before I discovered punk rock, I started playing D&D at 8 years old, and I made the decision then when other kids were like, I want to be an astronaut or I want to be a fireman. I was like, I want to be a game designer like David Zeb Cook. And that was my dream until I we'll go full circle back to DRI and Kirk Brecht, and I was like, I want to sing in a band. And so, I still was engaged with gaming. I even, in the early 90s, was part owner of a game store with some friends, but it was a way that I had a stable job that I could come back to when I wasn't on tour.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I think, right, I think probably most of us who, well, a good chunk of us have been playing, from our youth. And I never expected to be doing this. I never my wildest dreams or this was never, it's not like something I ever aspired to and thought, oh, it could never happen. It just never crossed my mind up until, like 5 years ago.
yeah. And look at you now. How many releases you got now?
I think I've got, so if I got 20 Kickstarters, I probably have at least 22, 23. Yeah, I think I have at least 24, 25 books.
The SKU count just keeps going up and up.
Yeah, it does. It's like it started with the zines, and it all started with the idea that you fold a piece of paper in half,
Yeah.
and it's like my world changed. I just fold a piece of paper in half, and I can put out a small booklet. Like that's
Was
doable.
your first thing Gary's Appendix, or was there something before that?
No, what I did started doing, I should bring it down, but what I started doing is so I would get books that so I would get like Time Watch is a great time is a fun time travel RPG. And so
Hmm.
what I would do is then I would go through that and I go to the PDF and I would pull out the like an adventure and I'd reformat it into a zine format so that I could run at the table very easily.
Hmm.
And then the next thing I did is I took Keep on the Borderlands and I made it into a zine and I decided to draw the maps. But that's another story. I got lost in the well, I wasn't correct cross hatching, but the hatching. I went down a rabbit hole and I couldn't. It's like a fractal. It just couldn't stop. And I don't know if you ever. It's kind of like painting. Some like if you ever do any like uh, you probably haven't, but there's idea where you would paint a room, then you go over it with a sponge, and you just do lightly do a
Yeah.
sponge effect. Well, what I would do is I would start out a certain way, but then as I would go, something would change and it wasn't consistent. And so I found myself going around the room like 4 times to make everything consistent rather than just being consistent thinking. But here I would start hatching and then it'd be get more detailed. But then I had to go back to the old stuff to get more detailed. The next thing I know, I'm spending hours on, but anyway, the point was I put it together and then I sewed it together. It's like, oh, this is cool. And then I decided to do and then it was Scoundrels Make Your Game Criminal. That was the first project.
Okay. I did not know that. I discovered you through Gary's Appendix.
Yeah, so this one was a thing I decided to do. I wanted to do it was based on, so I love Blades in the Dark.
Hmm.
But I ran a Blades in the Dark that I converted to a different system. So I never actually ran a Blades in the Dark using Blade Dark system. So I
Hmm.
like the idea of criminality and the idea that, I think the concept they did is it's great. But then
Hmm.
I thought, but what if we had like a Moss a Cloud City Bespin?
Hmm.
And so then I kind of created this Cloud City where there's different levels and there's different NPCs and locations, but then you could also it didn't have to be space station, this could just be locations in the city. And then
Hmm.
I had generators for doing for crimes. So you want
Hmm.
to create a crime scenario, you can do that, and with all the NPCs you could roll. So it was this whole like little machine that you could do, or just pull out in pieces. And so that went into scope creep from one zine to three zines, and so and it worked out. I mean, I
It,
wanted $1,000, I got $1,000. It
yeah.
funded, and that started the whole thing.
It sounds like you OSRified Scum and Villainy.
I sure did, man. I for some reason back in the day, I used to get a game, love it, but I always wanted to convert to a different system before I even played it.
Yeah.
And so I'm less like that now. I think I don't have the intellectual energy to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was the thing is like I immediately fell in love with the vibe of DCC, but I also was like, all right, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this, and so I'm gonna strip these things out of it or modify them, and then as I bolted on this or that, it Stennard started turning into its own thing that uses the DCC core rules as its basis. So.
Yeah, I think to me, I think you can. So the base DCC, you can do a lot with, it seems to me if you go for DCC itself, just like a full DCC experience, it seemed like it's all focused. I could be wrong, but the center point of a full, I'll say full, but of like a atypical DCC is you have to have a magic user, and the expectation is probably something's going to go wonky to the casting of spells. Like this whole thing is really geared for magic users to start spell burning and to just crash the campaign.
It's funny because I did not experience that until my first game at Smuggler's Coffee because I had always run low level DCC experiences in the standard setting, uh, which actually my first experience with somebody spell burning was somebody killing everybody in the Old Barn Tavern in Steddard with a choking cloud. And I that was when I made the decision that one of the core tenets of Steddard is that wizards are feared and hated.
Yes.
And then once that tempered things until I was doing a one shot at Smuggler's Coffee, and this kid did my first time ever seeing a like mega spell burn, and conjuring 100 frogs or whatever, and I was just like, this element isn't for me. But I don't think of that. Like when I read the DCC judge's advice, that is not what you pull from the system. It was only like that perception of DCC is something that is specific to convention play as opposed to campaign play.
Well, I know I ran a Link Bar campaign,
Mhm.
and the guy decided there's some baddies, and he decided, you know what, I'm going to spell burn, and he had it all calculated out, and he he really just dropped his stats. His strength was two, con was two, all that, thinking he had it made because he could adjust for luck, and he rolled high,
Mhm.
and everybody in a quarter mile was asleep in the city.
Yep.
Everybody, and all those people are conscious, and here he has got a strength of two. He's helpless. Everybody's asleep, and there's no way they could ever, if he gets out, they could ever show back up in town because
Yeah.
they are that group. And so to me, like it kind of wrecked things, but if you can go with that, I mean, but every spell has this ability, not every spell, but to do something at low level, to do something like on a high level that will alter your campaign.
Yeah, but I will circle back to like when you read the judge's advice and like how healing you only get 1 hit point back per day unless you get bed rest, and then you get 2 hit points back per day. You only get 1 point of ability score back per day. If you are playing as it seems to intend, there are dire consequences for doing that.
Well, right, because your wizard will then be not be able to do anything for a long time.
Yes.
But
And
I'm just saying is, but you put that out there to a character to say, you know what, you can,
yep.
add a plus, 15 to your roll. Oh, well,
Yep. And that's
okay.
that's that's the thing. That was the thing with the choking cloud that killed everybody in the bar. Then, in order to cover it up, they burnt down the bar. And so then they couldn't ever go back to Stennard because everybody in the town, obviously, they were not able to convince anybody with a personality check that this did not happen.
Right. This is Fargo, right? This is like nobody's going to pull this one off.
Yes. And so, and that's the way that I play. I don't just let something like that slide. There's
No, but I'm saying is
consequences.
though, but they didn't, but it's alter your campaign at that moment. Yeah,
Yeah.
you may have idea that we're gonna do this and this and this. Like, okay, like here, it's like now you're out of Lankmar.
Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah.
Okay. It's but I think in general that but to me and it doesn't have to be that way and I agree with yours but what I'm just saying is but I think the game does push towards things happen especially Lankbar like things can go really weird and you
Hmm.
got to be willing to embrace it like it's not just a typical even like with the especially Link are with those carousing rules. If you
Yeah.
really want to leave into those could just turn into just, it could turn into their own campaigns, the
Yeah.
effects. So, and that's what I love about, I think one thing I like about the DCC is you can do that. You can just say, we're just going to see what happens and whatever happens, we're going to deal with.
Yeah.
And
Emergent play.
the thing is, it's something and a lot of stuff doesn't wind up in death. It's just something that is extremely interesting or something
Yeah.
extremely unusual, not just you're dead. It's like okay, you slept with a noble's spouse and they caught you and you're on the run. Okay, that's now a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I ended up, I didn't pull from the Lankmar carousing tables. I pulled from the carousing table, I think, in Knave 2E, because I liked that one better. But the Stennard carousing table in Stennard Courier Volume 2, I ended up, pulling in things like, you end up having a romantic tryst, and now they have joined your party and have brought their kids along. Um, and then, roll for how many kids they have. And so, uh, that creates an interesting conundrum in a grimdark situation. Um, so yeah, I love that kind of stuff, and so I ended up, pulling in a lot of things that um, uh, Brandon from RPG Overviews, when he reviewed it, said that most most of the things on this table are bad, and it is true. But if you carouse, you get in my system, you get experience points for carousing, equivalent to the amount of copper up to a certain point that you spend, and then you make a luck check, and if you fail the luck check, then you roll on the table, and this is what happened. So, so yeah,
Well, and that's a push your luck mechanic, right?
yeah.
Like
And I love
you be
pushing.
like, you know what? I didn't tell you to do that. You just say if you want to, this is an option. It's a little bit of gambling, but you know what? You'll probably make your luck check. You'll probably make it, won't you? Yeah, I think you'll probably make it. What's your
That
luck again? 13. Oh, you got this.
I don't, I know, not everybody loves push your luck mechanics. I absolutely love them. You got to experience my flies, my insidious luck
Yep.
rules. And so, you know, so often people will be like, it's worth the gamble. I'll take those flies. And then, you know, 5 minutes later, I burn that fly to kill that same character that burned the flies in the first place. But it is that push and pull that I find so enjoyable. And once
Yeah.
again, it's one of those things that adds to the grimdark, but also adds to the dark humor of the grimdark. So,
Yeah, Cortex Plus. I don't know if you ever played any Cortex.
no, no.
So that has a great push your luck mechanic, and also just the very nature of, so if a person also builds up a dice pool and they roll it for most of those, if any of those dice come into roll a one, they go to a GM's doom pool. So so both the size of the die and the number of dice that you have in that doom pool, they both have effects. So there's some abilities where you can gain a D4 to your dice pool, and so that D4 has a 25% chance of being a one.
Yep.
And also, if you roll a four, it's not really that great of a number. It could still help you out, but it's not. But yeah, people all times be doing that, or even players probably are trying to get more dice in their pool than they should. But it's like that's okay, because if one of those D8s roll a one, now you got a D8 in your doom pool. So
Yep.
it's like, but in the end, nobody can complain because all the dice in the dice pool are because the players rolled those.
Yep. Just so you know, like Matt Pinfield, we're at 120 minutes.
120 minutes.
Sorry, that was an old MTV reference.
I don't know that. Who was this?
Matt Pinfield, he was the host of 120 minutes, at least
Ah,
for a stretch in the mid late 90s.
ah.
But yeah, we're at 120 minutes, so I don't know if you want to
We've been at this
keep
for two
going or
hours.
wrap it up.
We've been at this for 2 hours.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, I am wrong. I am wrong. We're at an hour and 20 minutes, not 120 minutes.
Yeah, I think what we would do is we probably ought to, because we could keep going.
Yes, we
Uh,
could.
I think for next time, I do want to talk about you also do run um, conventions for Goodman Games.
Hmm.
Run conventions, not quite word. You
I'm a con rep.
you're a con rep, yes, exactly. And so it sounds like there may be also, it sounds like Goodman Games is also expanding out to needing more con reps, or could
Yep.
be in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would be happy to talk about it.
So, so you're a contact for being a con rep, or you just want to
Uh,
talk about being a con rep?
just, you do want to talk about it or you don't want to talk about it now?
No, I didn't know if there's any opportunities coming in the future that people wanted to know about, or if you're just
So I do know that a little bird or a mid-sized bird, our friend Trevor, has dropped in one of the chats that an announcement will go out tomorrow that we're going to be looking for another Midwest con rep. And so that's something to look out for because I will tell the people at large. Yes, it is a lot of work, but if you like going to cities and hanging out with people and talking about games and experiencing the local cuisine while hanging out with people like Jeffrey Jones, there is a I think it's a fantastic thing to be a part of. I really enjoy it. And if I wasn't a con rep, I don't know that I would have been able to have so many wonderful conversations with you or with other people in the RPG sphere. So,
yeah, I'll tell you what, it's the conventions, the things I really love the most is the meeting with people.
mhm.
And I think the evenings not playing games, but the evenings having dinner with people is absolutely the highlight of the conventions.
That is part of my struggle because I love that too, but also because of working the booth, that is the evenings are when I am able to run games. And since I have that mentality that I want to storm the stage, kick over the mic stand, and start screaming in people's faces because that's my roots. That often takes the priority, and I'm glad that people like Trevor reel me back in and say, "Hey, Jeffrey wants to have dinner on this night."
It's funny because it also, I mean, right, there are people that are, I don't want to say expecting, that's probably a little much, but you got people that really want you to be running games. They
Yeah,
are there and they really uh that is a thing. So I can also understand too. It's like you don't want to let people down.
yeah.
Uh and so anyway, yeah, it could become, so how many reps are there currently?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think 8 to 10.
Okay. I feel safer because I thought, well, if there's two and this would be the third one, that's a triumvirate, and that probably won't gonna it's not gonna end well because I was thinking, I think if it was the three of us, I think Trevor would be the one that would win. We'd both be dead. So
Trevor, he's the lower Midwest con rep. I'm the upper Midwest con rep, and we're looking for a central Midwest con rep. Because I have too many. I have too many cons.
you can only spread Nick so thin.
Yeah, and now that I'm trying to get out to ones outside of the Midwest, it so I'm doing all the Goodman cons and then going out to, like MomoCon, and Dungeon Con and other cons on my own dime. Um, it is it's a lot of cons.
It
My
is.
my 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 list for this year was 17 last I looked, and I'm hoping that with the central Midwest Con rep that we can knock that down a little because 17's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot. And so Rabid Dogs is currently on Kickstarter for another couple weeks.
Yeah, last minute pitch. So Rabid Dogs Volume 3, it comes in. I took it out of the box frame. Hey,
Yeah,
look, this is what a mock-up looks like, friends. But so yeah, so the Rabid Dogs collector box that holds all three Rabid Dogs. If you have not experienced Rabid Dogs previously, there is an option that is a bundle box for $55 that you get all three Rabid Dogs in a nice collector's box.
yeah, it's one thing I've been wanting to talk to you about too is boxes. So I was wanting to have a few of you guys on and talk about boxes. No, we'll say that for another time.
Yeah, that is a world that Trevor dragged me into, and I am very excited about it actually.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm thinking about heading that direction maybe in a next year or so, but we'll see. I don't know, but I just realized too, it's like boxes comes with its own set of issues or can. So
It does. Yeah, you should have Trevor and I on.
yes, Trevor, you and I think Daniel Fox, because I think it would represent three different levels of things.
Mhm,
So you have you're doing the zines. I think with Trevor doing the more of the zine, like the storage box,
mhm.
and Daniel also doing it like on a large scale. Um,
Yep.
so, but anyway, and so go get Rabid Dogs while it's going and get the box set. Why not?
Yeah. So my closing pitch for those that are listening. I have a Patreon page. It's Nick Baran Breaker Press. I don't know the exact underscore placement and what have you, but look for Nick Baran Breaker Press. I have a YouTube channel where I talk about Dungeon Crawl Classics and give GM advice and detail the basics of the rules, yada yada. And then my current Kickstarter, as we said, is Rabid Dogs Volume 3. So there are all sorts of ways to support. And if you track me down and are interested in having me run a game at your store, at a convention, or even at your home, that is all within the realm of possibility. So reach out to me for booking.
Just make sure you have a vegetarian soup or some sort of alternative if you're going to be serving food.
That is not a requirement.
Okay.
That is just the red carpet treatment.
That will say that I will say that I think all of your I should say all, it's not watched all of them, but your YouTube instructional videos for the DCC system is fantastic. So it's not like you're sitting in for an hour and a half. It's like, don't understand how luck mechanics work. I wonder how this does. You can just watch a video that just lasts like, I don't know, 3 to 7 minutes or whatever it is. And
Usually 6 to 10 minutes
okay,
is the
six to
goal.
10 minutes. So it's like it gets right to the point and deals with it. And so I would suggest that anybody who's interested in running DCC take a look at that. And they're very well done and very very quick. So
Thank you.
well, thanks for coming on, and I will definitely have to do another podcast sometime in this year as well.
Love it. Thank you so much for having me on.
Take care.